Hey guys, today I've got a new video for you. This is the Kludge RK61. Um, I'm excited to get into this because my very first mechanical keyboard was made by this brand. I loved it. I didn't really know what I was doing back then, but now that I have a little bit more experience, I really want to get in there and find out what this can sound like. This one stock came with some brown tactile switches. Not my favorite, you guys know that. But I'm going to give you guys a sound test regardless of what this sounds like straight out of the box, and then we'll get into the video. So first things first, just like with every other keyboard that we modify, we gotta tear this thing down. This is pretty simple. We're just gonna go here, use a keycap puller and a switch puller to take off both the keycaps and the switches. We'll get into this and use our screwdriver to take out all of the screws that are in here. Sometimes in some of these keyboards, there's also screws holding the plate and the PCB together. It's not all just these top screws. And as you can see here, there's several on the back. So whether you're modding this particular keyboard or you have something similar, maybe an older variant, version 1, version 2, small little things can change. But overall, look around. If you see a screw in there, take it out. It might solve your problem. I know in the past, for myself personally, I'll get in there, I'll take out 4 screws and be like, okay, I'm good. Try pulling it apart, and there's one in the middle that I didn't catch, and it's better to not force everything or anything at all for that matter, and really make sure you're taking these things apart properly, because you don't want to break anything or mess anything up. If you're getting a keyboard and you want to modify, make sure you test it and make sure it works before you start doing this. Last thing you want to do is do any of this, maybe void any warranties, and then you're stuck with a keyboard that you attempted to modify and now you can't do anything about because it was broken to start with. Anyways, I'm gonna get in here, do some stabilizer stuff. It's the same thing. It's the same thing for any of these videos, honestly. I don't even know why I put this in here anymore. I'm pretty sure you guys know how to do this. This is me attempting to balance the wires. Most of them are pretty nice. But this one, the spacebar, I don't know if it's just because it's longer, it has a tendency to bend more or something, but I did try to bend it back in place and I was pretty satisfied with what it ended up sounding like. Clipping the feet for the stems of the stabilizers just to reduce a little bit of wobble. I put a little bit more work into these stabilizers than I usually do, and that's more so because it's something I want to improve on. Generally, I feel like there's been times in the past where I have pretty good stabilizers. There's been times where I've really failed to hit the expectation that I wanted, and I'm sure some of that has to do with the quality of these stabilizers, but I really feel that if I can nail the method, if I can really get a solid technique down and be consistent with it, then even these lower quality stabilizers, the ones on these budget keyboards, can still end up sounding really quite good. Yeah, there will be some tick sometimes, there will be some rattle, and unless you're gonna sit here and take these out of the board over and over and over and really try to get them sounding absolutely perfect, and at that point it seems a little much of a hassle. It seems more like a hassle than I'm willing to put in for it. Something of this budget keyboard, it's okay. It's not going to be perfect, and that's understandable in my opinion. So we just do the same process here, lube up the housing, lube up the stems, use some dielectric grease for the wires, snap them all together, and then we'll move on to getting these into the plate, and then after that, continuing the build with the PCB. So here, I'm using some Band-Aid. This is some fabric Band-Aid, and I'm cutting these little strips because the stabilizer housings themselves were not fitting quite as tight as I wanted to into the plate. This is a small little trick, I'm sure you've seen it before, just to kind of add a small amount more to the plate, right? Just to make a tighter fit when you slot this in. You can kind of tell when you need it. Typically, I will just, once the stabilizers are installed, I'll grab them, try to wiggle them side to side. Sometimes there's a little bit of play, and you can use it then. I've used stabilizers in the past that have a small amount of wiggle, and it's not really noticeable once everything's said and done, the board's built. But when they kind of, it's hard to say, but there's a noticeable amount of wiggle when you know, okay, something needs to be done with this. It doesn't have to be done to every single keyboard, but these were a little more wiggly than I liked. I had a little more play, so I just popped this in to kind of reduce the tolerance, make sure that they are tight, because I don't want to hear any of that when this is coming through in the end. So small little strips, wrap them around from the underside of the plate. I like to use the tweezers to grab them from the underside and then pull it through and make sure it adheres pretty well. And it's a small little trick that will help the sound of your stabilizers overall if you find they're pretty loose in that cutout that's in the plate. From here, we're going to move on to the next step, and that is going to be me trying to figure out how I'm going to mod this thing. There's no foam in between the plate and PCB, so I'm here attempting to use some PE foam. This is probably one of the easier mods to do. As you can see here, I'm going to use this PE foam on the back of the plate to mark out where I need to cut. You don't want to just slap this down without cutting out room for your stabilizers, because then the board, once it's all put together, without having that spacing, it creates sort of a warp, I guess would be the best way I know how to explain it. And I've done it before. I've messed up, forgot about cutting this out, and the switches in the middle of my board just ended up popping out of place. It doesn't seem like it would be that much of an issue, but it certainly was. So cut that out. I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble this thing, and we can move on to the next part, which I'm sure you guys know is one of the other best mods to do. I say best, one of my favorite, and that's just a simple tape mod. I did have some issues with the footage. I can't remember 100% whether it's in here or not, but just know I tested out a couple different things, ended up going with tape in the end. I believe I did 2 layers, and it just, for it being a $4 roll of masking tape, guys, and half the time you being able to use the PE foam that your keyboard came in to do these modifications, it makes a world of difference. Yeah, it kind of drowns out some of the quote-unquote keyboard sound, but these are budget keyboards. It sounds better. When you get up to higher end things, sure, I understand. Now we're just going to go ahead and install these switches. These are some Matcha Green Switches I got off AliExpress. They have a nylon housing, palm stem, and a 45-gram spring. These did come pre-lubed, and I've got to say, for the price that these were, I believe I got a pack of 70 for, I think it was $17. No branding on them, nothing. I just decided to give them a try because it's a new switch for me. Why not? I was really impressed with these guys. Like, oh man, I don't even know what else to say. Once I threw these keycaps on and tested it out for the first time, for the amount of work I had to do, which is just push them in, them coming pre-lubed, not the best, but not bad at all. The price point was fantastic. It's a lighter spring. I consider it to be kind of in the middle, I guess, 45 gram, but I mean, I think they're nice. I think they're a good budget option. I wish I could give you guys a brand. If you like the way they sound, try them on just AliExpress, Matcha Green Switch, see what pops up. But these are just Drops Artifact Shield purple on black keycaps. I picked these up a while back, and I tried putting them on a board that these just don't come with the different modifier key sizes. So I ended up taking them off of that, putting them on here, and I think the board looks cool in the end. So I'm gonna leave you guys a sound test. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did.